Welcome back to Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby. And today we're going to talk about the teams that are going to possibly go from the worst in their division to the first in their division. Every year, we kind of have this segment because there's, normally one team that'll go from last place to first place. And it doesn't happen every single year, but it's pretty close. So we're going to get into it. Starting off, we're going to rank these in order of if we think it'll happen or not. The team that we think has the least chance to do it is the New England Patriots. That's a difficult division, and it's the one team that we don't think is good out of that whole division. So,
yeah, it's probably the hardest division to call as a whole. I wouldn't place any money on whoever to win right now because they're basically everybody but the Patriots are plus 200 or higher to win it, and it's just not. It's pretty wide open, but the Patriots are clearly tiers behind both of those teams,
right,
or all three of those teams rather. They're the highest of any last place team by far to win their division at 25-1. That's basically double the next highest, and it's just looking pretty rough. They didn't really do anything with all the money that they had other than re-sign their own guys, and those own guys didn't really lead them anywhere last year. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett's a serviceable transition starter. I don't expect he or even Drake May, even if he proves himself to come in earlier than expected, would do enough to even warrant flirting with 7 wins, let alone a division crown. So they're at the bottom. They're probably the safest bet to, not make the playoffs or not even make any noise. But usually those are the teams that, end up biting you in the butt. So
yeah,
we'll just see.
They actually have the lowest win total of any team in the NFL right now. They're at over 4.5 at -150, so they're expected to win 5 games. I'd even be okay with taking the under on that, so that's kind of where I'm at. But next up at the 7th spot for us is the Los Angeles Chargers. It's not that the Chargers aren't better than some of these other teams. It's more so that Kansas City's in their division, and it's going to be really hard to see them dethrone Kansas City. Kansas City just happens to be, the 2-time Super Bowl champs, back-to-back Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that their odds to win the division are this,
I agree.
low. Plus 320 is pretty low for a team that's won in the Chiefs that have won it about 7 years in a row, I believe.
Yeah.
Or at least every year in the Mahomes era. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially this year. I do think that the Chargers are better than most of these teams that are on this list. But again, this is not who's going to make the playoffs. This is who's going to go from worst to first.
Right.
Not worst to second. They'll probably be riding the playoff hunt when we do our predictions video. But for now, we're going to say that they're probably by far the favorite to be second in that division, flirt with a wild card. But it's a big turnaround, even though last year was kind of a lost year because, several injuries, including at quarterback.
Yeah, and they're sitting at, 8.5, which feels pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's over 8.5 at -155. So they're expected to win 9 games. The only thing is, we were talking about with the Chiefs. Let me find them on this thing here. They're projected to win. They're over 11.5 at -118. So they're projected to win 3 at least more games than the Chargers. It's just going to be really difficult to see the Chargers making it all the way to the top. That probably takes 11, 12 games, and I just don't see them winning 11 or 12 games.
Yeah, we'll talk about, because every year there's 6 to 7 playoff teams that don't make it that year that made it the year before. Every year it's that much parity. And we're going to do a video where we break down all 14 playoff teams last year and let you know how we rank the risk of missing the playoffs. The Chiefs are going to be far and away the furthest back, and something catastrophic has to go wrong, hence the tier they're in.
Right.
Like a Mahomes Brady going down in 2008 kind of thing for them to barely miss out. Because even if they do miss out, I still think it's close enough to where they can flirt with the wild card.
Right.
Like they're that talented as a team as a whole. So, not much to say about the Chargers. They're a very talented team. They could perform, win 9 games. That's probably spot on with what I would say right now. But, that's not going to get it done in the West.
Right. And then the week 5 bye doesn't help them either. No. So, and then moving up to the 6th place team on this list. And, we kind of, the 6th and the 5, Washington and Tennessee, we had flipped. So Cam believes that Washington will have a better chance of winning the NFC East. And I think that, the Titans might have a better chance of winning the AFC South. But without that being said, they're right there with each other. The Titans just happen to have, a week 5 bye. They're in a young quarterback division, so there's a lot of parity in that. A guy, and Anthony Richardson's only played 2 full games last year. Trevor Lawrence hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype of Trevor Lawrence. And then, of course, you have Houston and CJ Stroud. But we just think, the Titans with the way they end their schedule, things like that, it's really difficult to see them being able to take over the AFC South.
Yeah, and like you said, we're kind of going to bunch Washington, Tennessee together because they're right neck and neck. I think head to head, Tennessee's probably better at this very moment. The problem is that Washington, at least we know they're better than the Giants right now, and Dallas has had a bad offseason. Philly, they played really close both games last year, so we know that they're competitive enough to win it all. With Tennessee, I just can't put myself head to head with them to any of the teams. I think Indy is better. I think Houston's better. And I think Jacksonville is better.
Right.
Don't let Jacksonville's into the season last year, deflect how good they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to flirt with being the 1 seed again. But, they made a great playoff run and they were a hot team, made it to the Final Four in 2022. And then in 2023, they were 8-3 on the verge of becoming the 1 seed and they just fell apart.
Right.
So, they're at least going to be flirting with the wild card. And then Indy, without their starting quarterback, was 9-8, and it was win or go home the end of the season. And Houston ended up winning that game and winning the South.
Right.
So it's just that's kind of the tiebreaker to me. And then you look at Tennessee's schedule, and it's early bye is never helpful, especially for a new coach in a new situation. But at Chicago, Jets, Green Bay, at Miami, they might be underdogs in all 4 of those games.
Right.
And if they good case scenario, start 1-3. Well, then you got at Buffalo, at Detroit quickly after their bye, and it's just all of a sudden you could be 2-6 and out of the picture, just like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then not just that, you see they will play Washington in Week 13. I want to say that I just want to put this out there because we'll talk about Washington next a little bit more in depth on their schedule. But both of them are at 6.5 even money, so you could go over under for Washington or Tennessee. They're both sitting at the same spot. They're farther down this list, of course, than some other teams because of solid divisions, but not even just that. They just don't have a high win total, not expected to do that much this year. So, yeah, let's talk about Washington and their schedule. We've talked about how much, I think that the NFC East has one of the most interesting division outlooks because of the fact that Philly imploded. And then Dallas kind of imploded in the final game, and it's kind of open. And we, like you said, we think they're better than the Giants. So what do they need to get to if both of those other 2 teams go down? Well, I think it's 9 wins, 9-10 wins, and they're pretty comfortably there. That's a stretch, of course, for Washington. They would need to win, games that they weren't expected to win, possibly winning at Dallas in the Week 18 to do stuff like that. But it's not impossible to see them being a team that sneaks in. New quarterback, number 2 pick. We saw Houston do it last year. It's not that I'm saying that they're Houston and Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, but it's not impossible in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, and we're not going to pick them to probably make the playoffs. Like we think that there's good 5 teams as wild cards that have probably a better chance. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be shocked if they ended up as a wild card or even winning the division.
Right.
And again, this isn't going to be them going 12-5 and just beating out a really good team. It would be more so because of a collapse to Dallas and possibly even Philly.
Right.
But you look at their schedule, and outside of road games against Cincinnati and Baltimore, which are early, there's not really a for sure loss that you can just pencil in. Normally, when you're a good team, you can just flirt with, okay, they're going to split with this team, and this team, and just put 3-3 for average teams. And that's typically kind of how I do schedules. Because I can't just for sure say they're going to be swept by Philly because they were close and down to the wire. I think one game went to overtime last year. Dallas, there was they played them close once, and then the Thanksgiving game, that was the one where they had 35 points in 4 minutes, and it was just a avalanche of things. But before, we've seen them upset Dallas, and even though Dallas in this 12-5 3 straight years run, they've I think they swept all 3 years. that doesn't mean it's any different because their DC is very familiar with Dallas, Dan
Right.
Quinn, and he did bring a lot of role players from that team. So don't tell me that he's not going to be motivated to get at least one of those games. And then the Giants, like I said, they should be better. I'm not going to call a sweep because the Giants have actually swept them twice
Mm-hmm.
in 2 years in a row. But you would think at least one to possibly even two, depending on when those fall. So 8-9 wins is very reasonable in that. But if you're going to win the division, I think it's more so because of a collapse of the others rather than you just
Right.
going full Houston mode like Houston did last year.
Yeah. And then going to Carolina at 4. Carolina's a team, that just doesn't have to. It's funny because like Carolina's the worst of the teams from last year. 2-15 has the worst record, but they don't have to win as many games to get in. So Tampa Bay last year won 9 games, got
The year
in.
before 8-9.
8-9,
Mhm.
got in. And so with Carolina, they have to win less games to make it, and that's why they're higher than other teams that are more talented than them. If you kind of look at their schedule too, like the games that are out of their division, the Raiders, you get Washington, you get New Orleans. Of course you get New Orleans twice. I'm sorry, but you get teams, the Giants, teams that are beatable outside of their basic division schedule. So I think it's a reasonable thing to put them at 4 above those other teams because they have a path.
Right. And early on, they could probably surprise some people, maybe even be 500 after, weeks 4 or even 6, just based on the opponents that they have. And it's not like they're going to New Orleans and it's just like, oh, they have no shot.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be dogs, but it's a neutral site kind of environment. And New Orleans had a bad off seasons. They have probably the worst offensive line going into the season. After Ryan Ramczyk was, officially ruled out, we kind of suspected that, but
Right.
it's not going to change the fact that they're going to be below average. Couldn't really move the ball. There's already like Kendrick Miller's hurt,
Mm-hmm.
Alvin Kamara hold in ish situation and he's getting up there in age. Michael Thomas is gone, and it's just like there's not positive thing. It feels like a team that's just taking a step back. And again, Tampa Bay lost most of their Super Bowl defense at this
Right.
point. Really, only people left are the Antoine Winfields and Vita Veas that they just drafted
Mm-hmm.
at those points. And it's really a really weak division.
Yeah.
And so I understand Atlanta deservingly so should be the favorite, but 9.5 being juiced is just crazy.
No, yeah, I
But
agree.
it's like all 4 teams have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. So it's like I think some of these teams, I don't know who, but they will do better than the public expects.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just kind of see what happens. I don't expect to leap that far, but the path is there, like you said, because of the division that they're in.
Yeah. And then looking at the Arizona Cardinals at 3, the reason, it's difficult to see the Arizona Cardinals winning the division is because they're in the best team in the NFC's division. But that team in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers, are kind of having their own issues in training camp right now. With that being said, of course, we don't expect that to fall into the whole season, but getting those things fixed early is the best thing to do. You can kind of see, though, the path for Arizona. They get a great bye week 11, and then, they get to play some pretty easier teams just down the stretch. They get Seattle twice, who we think if they do jump anybody, it'll be Seattle in the division. Then they get New England, Minnesota, Carolina. Then 2 division games to end the year. That's a pretty solid schedule for them. So
Yeah, I mean, we're really kind of starting to pour on some Arizona love in recent weeks, you and I.
mm-hmm.
Again, we don't expect them to win the division, but it is worth noting that San Francisco is 11.5 is their win total, and it's juiced to the under.
Mm-hmm.
So the public is on them actually taking a step back this season. And on top of that, you look at their most recent Super Bowl run 4 years ago, they went 10-7 the following year. And that was the year that, they made it as a 6 seed, then won a wild card game, then beat
Right.
Green Bay
Mm-hmm.
in the snow game. That's kind of a possible thing,
Yeah.
really. And like you said, the schedule isn't really too daunting. You have 3 straight home games early in the season to get some momentum before, a tough probable L in San Fran, but you've beaten San Fran before. And then there's not really, again, nothing of for sure L's outside of possible division games that you can just chalk like oh, they're 4-2 against the division or 3-3 against the
Right.
division, but it's really not crazy.
Probably splitting the division.
Buffalo is like one of the toughest environments late in the season. Well, you get them week 1 in fair weather.
Right.
So it's like scheduling breaks matter, and that's Miami. You don't want to play early because of the heat and you get them week 8 in November. It's awesome. Like those kinds of things really kind of work out in their favor, and I could really see them being a 9-win team. And really, we've said before, the final 3 divisional spots, if the division winners kind of go chalky, San Fran, Detroit, Philly, and Atlanta, that leaves Dallas, Green Bay, Chicago, and the Rams. And I could really see Arizona kind of flirting with that, especially if a couple of those teams who have become kind of fragile. Like I said, Dallas had an awful offseason. They're very top heavy now. The Rams are top heavy as well.
Right.
Also lost Aaron Donald. Green Bay, really difficult schedule. And then San Francisco, there's a holdout already of their best left tackle, Brandon Ayuk, awkward thing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's weird vibes. It's weird vibes with everybody. And Arizona is just kind of slowly creeping up.
Getting better. Defense is still really bad. Don't get me wrong.
No, yeah.
But at the same time, they're getting better. Their offense has gotten better. They have, helped on their O-line. Jonah Williams getting there. Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like, okay, I feel the vibes. Kyler's coming back. They got a real second running back and Trey Benson. So we'll see what happens. We were excited about them, though. And then the number 2 team on this list, the Chicago Bears, got the 29th strength of schedule. That's awesome. They're going to, of course, they have the bye week 7, which isn't bad. They're, kind of running into the fact that they got better and everybody's kind of on them right now, including us. We were on them really early. We got a lot of hate for how high we ranked them originally in our power rankings, but that's okay because now everybody's kind of getting to where we are with them. So yeah, I think it's an exciting team.
So it's crazy to think about, but they could be 5-1 going into their bye. And then right after that, have 3 straight games that finish 4th place in their division in Washington, Arizona, and New England. And I'm not saying they're going to win all those games, but that's a path to be already kind of penciled in as a playoff team entering late November. And that's awesome for a team that kind of turned around. Yes, they have the number 1 pick. That was not their pick. That was Carolina's pick. They were 17 last year with Tyler Badent and injured Justin Fields. Caleb Williams is better, and they got better around him.
Right.
And that's the important thing. So, again, it's very, very good vibes around where they're at, and I think they're going to be better than expected. That's why we are penciling. They are our safest. Put him in the playoffs. Just put him in. And they've actually become even money to be a playoff team now.
It's crazy.
So,
and we were on that early.
We've been on that from the very jump. So, again, I don't know if they can beat Detroit. That's one of our favorite rosters in the NFL.
Right,
but we are putting them in at the playoffs pretty comfortably. We'll just kind of see when we put out our prediction video how high we have them.
They're minus 165 to over 8.5. They're juiced to at least 9 wins right now, and I don't think that's ridiculous if they go 7-2, 8-1 early. Like then they just have to win 2 games. I'm good with that all day long.
To me, like I said, the schedule, you could be 6-3, and that almost could be a floor based on the schedule that they have, which is crazy to think about, but that's how quickly things can turn around. And when breaks go your way and you have one of the easiest schedules and a young coming team,
exciting.
Just look out.
Yeah. And then we go to the top team. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. Injuries to Joe Burrow last year hurt their chances, but look at this. They're tied for the 16th strength of schedule. Everybody else in their division is top 5. Pittsburgh got absolutely screwed. They have the hardest schedule to ever, possibly. And Cincinnati's going to have an opportunity to play a bunch of 4th place teams also, like we talk about. Then they're going to, of course, 2 Baltimore games in the first 10 weeks. So they get those out of the way. Just down the stretch, week 12 bye, down the stretch, they're going to just have a lot of firepower, I feel like, playing teams like Tennessee, Denver. Getting Dallas at Dallas might be difficult, but that's okay. And then at Pittsburgh to end the year, it just feels like they should be in the playoffs at least. And 11, 12 wins doesn't seem impossible.
Yeah, this was the only answer that could be number 1 in this kind of video.
Right.
And it obviously reflects in the odds. They're basically a pick 'em. Baltimore's plus 140. They're plus 145.
Right.
And right now, I would not comfortably, but put the Bengals in. A lot of things based on the fact that it's schedule related,
Mm-hmm.
and Baltimore expected to take a step back. They didn't really get better this offseason. Don't consider signing Derrick Henry for Gus Edwards as, oh, they're taking the
Losing
next leap.
your right tackle.
You lost 2 offensive
Yeah,
linemen,
too well. Exactly.
and then your linebacker, your
Yeah.
budding linebacker, and Patrick Queen to your rival. It's a really good team, but Cincinnati is really good also. They were just in the Super Bowl the last season that Joe Burrow was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, or that's a lie. They went
Yeah,
Super Bowl and then
and
AFC Championship game.
right.
Controversial penalty is why they did not move on.
Mm-hmm.
So they were at the thick of the things, and Baltimore has really played them well, and more often than not has come out on top. It'll be really interesting to see those games, especially early on in week 5 and week 10. But like you said, really easy stretch, especially you look at Cleveland and Pittsburgh, how tough it is at the end for them.
Right.
Well, Cincinnati, you get those teams, but it's home games.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Pittsburgh in week 18, but it's
I just want to like name these off, right? So you have New England, Washington, Carolina, the Giants, the Raiders, Tennessee, Denver. 7 games that I'm like, okay, just say they lose 6-1.
Yeah.
And then they just have to go out and say they split the games. They're 6-1. They split the games in their division, 9-4. I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
just find me 2 more, essentially.
yeah, they can
I
find
think
11.
this team, or basically all 4 teams last year, finished with a winning record. I don't think that'll be the case this year. But right now, the juice is that basically everybody but Pittsburgh will. And if Pittsburgh does not, that's the first time in Mike Tomlin's era that he has.
Right.
But again, all 3 of those teams, top 5 strength of schedule, Cincinnati is right in the middle of the pack. So that may not seem like a big advantage, but it is when you compare, head-to-head schedule.
Right. Absolutely. And then, yeah, that's the last team on our list. Those are the worst to first for us. Division, worst to first. We appreciate y'all coming and hanging out. Go get in our bio and check out all the socials. Discord's been going. We're going to start talking about all the prize picks, underdog picks that are coming up because Underdog already released theirs. So go see those. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us.
Yeah, we're basically 40 days away from the season. It's so exciting. It's getting close. This summer has gone by so fast, but we still have a lot of content to put out.
Yeah.
So please, look into that if you're a fantasy fan. We got several live streams on Wednesdays and on occasion other days, predictions videos, like fun games, all that stuff. And then we also debuted our football academy that Emery and our fellow GTD co-founder Dusty will be implementing. I might be appearing on some of them, but we need more chairs for that.
Yeah, of course.
And more microphones.
Yeah.
So, but until then, like, there's so much that we have to put out to offer you guys. But the only thing we ask in return, like, comment, subscribe, and just join the community, be a part of it. We want comments, we want concerns, questions, all that stuff. But until then, we're gonna get out of here. But we'll see y'all next time.
Appreciate it. We'll see y'all.